Hello, I'm Angela, and I just managed to get out of the most toxic situation that I was ever in my entire life. I'm still dealing with all the emotions of it all, so do excuse me if this gets a little too long. My story starts with me meeting my then husband, Harry. Harry and I met at college. We started dating pretty quickly because he was one of the most good-looking guys on campus, and I was pretty good-looking myself. We dated for a long, long while. Harry proposed to me right after we graduated, and while I said yes, happily, we both knew that we needed to wait a little while longer before we actually got married. We were both very focused on our careers and wanted to make sure we were both in a good place before we did something as big as marriage. Harry also asked me to move in with his family because that would allow him to work better and allow me to get to know them. I agreed because of his reasons, along with the fact that I would be saving money on housing. I worked really hard at that point. I knew that I wanted to have a luxurious wedding, and I wanted it to be with all our family around us. In the meantime, Harry was focused on working at his father's firm. He came from a pretty big and influential family. He was also really rich, which is why my dream to have a big wedding was not a far-fetched idea. Anyways, we focused on our careers for around 4 years before I got pregnant. It wasn't a planned pregnancy, and I was pretty shocked that I got pregnant considering we were being careful about it. I was so hell-bent on me not being pregnant that I even went to the doctor to confirm it, and she told me that I was already 3 months along. That evening, I had to sit Harry down and tell him the news. So, I have some news. Well, is it good or bad? I don't know. It's whatever you want it to be. Okay, you're scaring me. What is it? I haven't got my period for the last 3 months. At first, I didn't think there was anything wrong with it because I thought it was just the birth control doing it, until something told me to take a pregnancy test. Oh no, are you telling me? Yes, I'm pregnant. Oh my God. Okay, well, are you sure the tests were not fake or give wrong results? I thought the same thing too, so I went to the doctor to get tested and they confirmed it too. Oh, wow. Wow, I didn't expect that. We have so much to do. This is wonderful. Really? Of course. How could you think that this was bad news? I didn't know how you'd take it. I mean, we were pretty focused on our careers and a baby would be a big bump in the road, literally. Well, I can assure you it's very, very good news. First things first, we have to get married. Finally! We immediately began planning for the big lavish wedding. Within the next 2 months, everything was set. We said our vows and we became husband and wife. Harry was very kind and gentle with me when I was pregnant. Even with the wedding planning and the wedding itself, Harry never left my side. He made sure I was comfortable while having a good time. However, after around 2.5 months of getting married, Harry's behavior began to change. He stopped looking after me. He stopped checking in on me. I tried to talk to him on multiple occasions, but he refused to tell me what was wrong. I eventually gave birth to my beautiful daughter, Petal. Harry hadn't been there when I was giving birth, and that only added to my pain. Thankfully, my mother-in-law, Lucy, was there with me. I was in the hospital for about a month after I gave birth due to a lot of complications after birth. I had a mini stroke and lost a lot of blood. Harry didn't visit me even once, and I was hurt beyond words can describe. What kind of husband leaves their wife to suffer that way? Anyway, Lucy told me a couple of weeks after I gave birth that Harry was going to perform a DNA test on Petal to see if she was really his. Apparently, he thought it was too suspicious that I suddenly got pregnant. Hearing that only made me feel even worse because I had never even once given him the chance to doubt my faithfulness. He conducted the test anyway, and it confirmed that Petal was his child. But by that point, Harry had checked out of being a father and husband for so long that he just found it more comfortable. Even after I returned back home, I tried to talk to him about it, but he told me he wanted nothing to do with either Petal or me. It was in this manner that Petal and I stayed for the next 7 years. It was a painful time for me, but there wasn't much I could do. Harry had made me quit my job when I was pregnant, and I had no savings to fall back on. Plus, Harry was doing well at his father's business, so I knew that he could provide for us. I only stayed in the house because I wanted to be with Pedro without having to face any issues. He barely looked at Pedro and my way. He would complain if I raised any issues with the household work or the lack of thereof. I learned very quickly that Harry was not the sweet-tempered man that I had known before. The only reason I was still living there was because he knew that I was taking care of his parents, a job he didn't want to do. His parents, Patrick and Lucy, doted on Harry a lot. They believed that he could do no wrong, so even when they could see the way he had been treating me and my daughter, they didn't care. They fully believed that I was the reason that Harry was ignoring his duties. They believed that I had done something that warranted that behavior with us. I was initially really hurt by that, but I learned to let go. You see, Patrick and Lucy suffered from a lot of issues. Patrick was diabetic and Lucy was on heavy medication for her heart issues. They required a lot of care and attention. I felt bad for them, so I took over the role of primary caregiver for them. Harry and Mike were always swamped with work at their business, so it was hard for them to look after their parents. I did suggest to Harry that they hire someone to look after his parents, but he refused. Ever since he took over the household expenses, he made everyone's lives miserable. He would not spend a cent unless it was absolutely necessary. I cannot tell you how many canned and microwaved foods we have eaten up until then. It got to a point where I was taking Pedro out to salad houses just so she could get some actual nutritious food in her system. I remember there was this one time when Pedro got really sick. She had a very high fever that refused to go down. I began to panic when she showed no signs of improvement, and I had to beg Harry to take her to the hospital. Pedro is sick. We need to take her to the hospital. It's just a fever. Just throw a wet cloth on her head and call it a day. Harry, she's been sick for a week and hasn't improved in the least. She's barely eating anything, and I just know that something is really wrong. Just let her heal on her own. If you pamper her, her body won't learn how to fight off sickness by itself. She's your daughter, Harry. Don't you have even the slightest bit of sympathy? Not really. Does me panicking and crying at least make you feel a little bad? I'm literally just begging you to give me some money to take her to the hospital. Do you even know how expensive hospitals are? That's right, you don't. You don't earn a cent, and you're just freeloading off of us. And you have the nerve to ask me for money to fund your expenses? Oh yeah? And whose fault is it that I'm not working? You forced me to not work after I gave birth. The least you can do is take some responsibility. Look, after Pedro was born, I realized just how much I detest domestic living, and I wanted to rid myself of you guys, but you guys stuck to me like glue and refused to leave. If it were up to me, I would have thrown you out a long time ago. You know what? Forget it. I don't even know why I bother with you. I walked away from him with tears in my eyes. As I was walking towards Pedro's room, I bumped into Mike. He looked worried when he saw me crying. I quickly explained my situation to him and he looked alarmed. He asked me to grab Pedro and meet him in his car. I did just that, and as we were exiting the driveway, Harry ran after us, yelling at us for disobeying him and sabotaging our family expenses. Mike told him to stop being a heartless jerk and to just let the kid get the treatment she needed. Before Harry could reply, Mike drove away. My heart was pounding in fear for Pedro. If Mike hadn't helped me, I probably would have asked a friend to lend me some money, and I would have had to pay them back eventually. I was really grateful to Mike, who, unlike his brother, actually had a heart. When we got Angela into the ER, they conducted a lot of tests on her and concluded that she had a severe case of hyperpyrexia, which is just a fancy way to say a really high fever caused by another issue. But since Pedro was a child, her bigger arteries were all inflamed, making the fever even worse. She was made to stay in the hospital for another few days so they could monitor her and bring her temperature down. Every one of those days, Harry called me to tell me what a selfish person I was for taking Pedal to the hospital after he already told me not to. The first day I got his call, I explained the situation to him, but he didn't care. The calls after that, I didn't care to listen to a word. Mike, on the other hand, was a godsend. He made sure to swing by the hospital every day, and he stayed with Pedal for a few hours so I could go take a shower and eat a proper meal. He also brought a lot of Pedal's toys for her to play with, and that made her really happy. Seeing her smiling and laughing after days of watching her suffer made me feel better about our situation. After Pedal got discharged from the hospital, Mike actually began making an effort to make our lives easier. Before, he barely batted an eye at us because he was a big believer in minding his own business. He figured that we were Harry's mess to deal with. He treated us with respect but never actually checked to see how we were living with them. I remember when he took Pedal and me out to the park one day. We watched Pedal play around while the both of us ate ice creams. He seemed lost in thought and a little sad, so I asked him, "What's wrong? Why do you look so lost in thought?" "Oh, it's nothing. Come on, you helped me out when I most needed it. Let me at least be a shoulder to lean on for you." Well, I was just wondering how my brother could possibly let the both of you go so easily. Oh yeah, well, it was super hard for me to grapple with also. In fact, I still struggle with it. There have been so many moments when I just look at him and expect him to go back to being who he was when we first met. I mean, it takes a special kind of heartlessness to abandon your own child when she still lives in your house. I've just learned to be grateful that he hasn't kicked us out. I mean, who would hire someone who hasn't worked for the last 7 years? I haven't even updated myself on all the changes that happened in my field. Why don't you try to find a job, though, even if it isn't in your field? Earning some money is better than earning no money, you know? You have no idea how badly I want to earn my own way, but I don't have the time to work. What do you mean? You could always work during the hours that Pedal was in school, and if you need it, I can help you enroll her into a daycare where she can stay after school. You really are an angel, aren't you? While I really appreciate that, I can't take you up on that offer. Even if I'm not taking care of Pedal, I'm taking care of your parents. Between that and cooking everyone's meals and cleaning the house, I have zero time to do anything else. Oh man, I completely forgot about everything else you've been doing for us. Oh my God. I'm so sorry that I turned a blind eye towards you for so long. I promise I'll help you out and make your days easier. I'll even help set you up with a job. I was surprised by how apologetic Mike was. In those months, I just learned to live as if I was invisible. To actually get recognized for all the work I had been doing made me feel really happy. After that, Mike began helping around quite a lot. Along with doing some household chores, he also helped his parents out with whatever they needed whenever he was free. This allowed them to spend more time as a family as well. Mike also got me set up with a desk job at one of his friends' companies. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was honestly more than enough for me to be able to move out and get my own place in a couple of months. Harry was not happy that Mike was helping me out so much. He constantly brought up how Mike was spending the family money on people who didn't deserve it. The first time that happened, Mike lost it at Harry. They got into a very heated argument that almost turned physical had I not stepped in. After a while of listening to the same comments over and over again, Mike learned to ignore whatever Harry said. I knew that if I was ever alone with Harry, he would unleash his anger at me, so I made sure to stay out of his way at all times. I needed to buy myself some time until I had enough money to put down a deposit for an apartment. And one day, while I was quietly walking past Harry's room so I could go visit Patrick and Lucy, I happened to hear Harry yell. Curiosity got the better of me, and I peeked in through the crack that the door was open. I watched as Harry punched his pillow with frustration. I then watched him sit on his bed completely still. He looked like he was going insane, if I'm being honest. Just as suddenly as he had gone still, he jumped back to life. He fumbled around his pockets before he finally pulled out his phone. He got on a call with someone and began talking about how it was Mike's team that was pulling in most of the revenues and how his team was beginning to want to work with Mike. He also complained about the decline in the work ethic in the office because of Mike. The both of them had their own teams to manage, and they also had two entirely different ways of managing those under them. Harry was an authoritarian leader who was very strict with those under him and constantly overworked them. Mike, on the other hand, was a lot more lax with his team. He treated them all with respect and listened to them. Now, it's pretty obvious why Mike's team was super productive. Harry did not understand why and hated Mike for it. He also complained about how Mike was changing things in the house and that he was beyond angry with Mike. Harry began to tell the other person about how he was going to sabotage Mike and everyone else living in the house because none of us respected him and his words, so he saw no point in having us there. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, although I decided to chalk his words up to him being angry. I figured that he would not have the time or capacity to follow through on his word. But I did make sure to keep an eye on him over the next week, and then one day he brought one of his friends over. They sat in his room as they discussed Harry's plan to sabotage Mike. "Look, Caleb, I'm just tired of Mike and his shenanigans." "I get that. So what are you going to do about it?" "I don't know, but all I know is that the man gets on my nerves. Suddenly he's become a good guy. He's been looking after my loser wife and child, and he's been taking care of our parents." "Do you think he's doing this for some gain?" "Oh, yeah, of course. Everything about him works for a benefit that he can earn. He probably wants all of my parents' estates as his inheritance." "That's definitely how it looks. Maybe you should do something soon. You can't let this go on longer. You are your parents' favorite, aren't you?" "Absolutely, and you're right. I need to keep it that way. What do you think I should do?" "Why don't you have your parents sign the house over to you, and then maybe you can throw them all out?" "I like that, but what about Mike?" "Well, your dad's still the CEO, and he has all the power to transfer the company under your name, too." "That is so true. Caleb, you're a genius." I was alarmed by what I was hearing. I quickly left after they switched topics to something else. Although I'm sure that Harry saw me, I know he saw me because he must have tried to cover his bases before he tricked his parents into signing over everything to him. The next day, I came back home from work to see all of them sitting at the dinner table with grim looks on their faces. I tried to ask them what was going on, but nobody replied to me. I felt awkward, but I had to take care of Pedal, so I let go of it. That night, I sat and thought about whether I should even call them about what I overheard, and I thought that they had a right to know. Even if Patrick and Lucy were a little mean to me, they still took great care of Pedal whenever I needed it. And Mike was just amazing in general. The next day, I came back from work, prepared myself to talk to Patrick, Lucy, and Mike about my plan. My heart raced as I walked into the living room to talk about it. Thankfully, Harry was still out, and I knew I had a little while before he came back home. "Why did you call us here?" "Well, I just wanted to tell you about something I found out the other day." "Hurry up with it." "I happened to overhear Harry talking to someone on the phone the other day. He made plans to take revenge on Mike and in turn take revenge on the both of you." "Get out." "Excuse me? You heard what he said." "I'm sorry, but why? I don't understand." "Harry told us about how you were going to come and tell us about some outlandish thing just so we could start hating him and transfer all our assets to you and Pedal." "What? I would never." "Oh, shut up. Lord knows the only reason we ever put up with you was because Pedal needed a mother. Now she's old enough and you've done enough. Get out of our house and our lives." "I have no place to go. I'm telling you, Harry is lying." "You have some nerve to say that. We made sure that Harry got all our assets. You will get nothing. Lie all you want. You won't get a cent from us." "And since you have no place to go, I'm sure CPS would not like that." "You can't be threatening me with my daughter." "You either leave peacefully or we kick you out and have Pedal's custody given to us." "Fine, I'll leave. Just please take good care of my little girl." I packed my things up and tearfully kissed Pedal goodbye. She cried a lot, and it only made my heart break even more. But this was the best thing I could do for her. I had one best friend that I hadn't contacted in years, but I reached out to her. Thankfully, she was more than willing to help me out. She opened her house to me, and that was where I moved in. She gave me her shoulder to cry on and listened to me. We caught each other up on our lives, and I actually did manage to squeeze out a laugh every now and then. I managed to fall asleep pretty easily because the mental and emotional strain was too much. The next day, I took a day off from work just so I could recover from everything and try to plan my next move. I knew I needed to have Pedro by my side, but I didn't need to think too much. At around noon, I got a call from Patrick. He sounded frantic. After I managed to get him to calm down, he explained that Harry kicked all of them out of the house and even took away Mike's job, so they did not have much money to rely on. He begged me to help them, but I was done. I had absolutely no sympathy for them. So I did the next thing I could think of. I contacted CPS and informed them of what was going on. It wasn't long until I got Pedro back with me. Even though I had no solid proof of residence, I at least had a roof over my head, unlike Patrick and Lucy. Besides, my friend also testified to me living with her until I'm able to get back on my feet, however much that might take. I got a lot of calls from Mike and his parents calling me a flurry of colorful words for taking Pedro away instead of helping them. But from how I saw things, I tried to warn them of this happening, yet they chose to make me suffer in the worst way possible. I'm always going to be grateful for how much they helped me, but this was crossing a big line. As for right now, I have full custody of Pedro and I'm in the middle of getting a divorce from Harry. My best friend helped me find a good job, and life is finally beginning to look up.